My name is Miriam Jobin, and my story gets interesting just after my 18th birthday when I found out that I was pregnant. When I graduated high school, which was 5 years ago in 2014, my daughter, her name is Scarlet Rose, she was 7 days old. After that, I took the time to take care of her and raise her and grow her into a more stable little child that could be cared for at a daycare so that I could then start working. At this point in my life, I was planning on being an LPN, a nurse, just like my mom and my cousin. In high school, however, I didn't like sciences, so I didn't study science. So when I got to the point that Scarlett was old enough to be cared for, I started working part-time at Walmart while studying one class at a time, which was chemistry and biology. When I was done at Walmart, I moved on to work at an office. I was looking for something where I'd be working office hours, 9 to 5, so my little girl was in daycare and I was working and we were together in the evening. Working part-time hours as a mom was really confusing and difficult because I'm trying to find, my mom or another grandparent or a friend, or if it's a babysitter, the hours are so random and it just becomes a little stressful, I suppose, and overwhelming. So I was working in the shipping department and also doing customer service. So there I learned a lot of phone skills and communication and how to deal with angry customers and happy customers and all kinds of different things there, whilst also using my second language. So that in itself was kind of a challenge that I had to overcome, practicing the language. And if I couldn't figure out how to properly express myself, especially in a tense situation, that was a hard mix of emotions to deal with. They were struggling in their hiring process. So we would get a new employee, put them in the shipping department, and it was a little bit hectic, and we'd end up with people who didn't quite have the skills we really were looking for. So it seemed like there were certain things that were getting missed in the hiring process. So in that and talking about it, I was given the task of hiring. So now I was posting the job ad and looking through resumes and calling people. And then I was in the interview talking to the person. And when they were hired, I would train them and then train them in the basics of the company, kind of the core principles, what we do, that kind of thing. And then I would hand them off to whichever department they were going in, and I would kind of oversee what was happening. So in that part of my career, I got kind of a blend of a lot of different things, and I experienced going through challenges that were hard emotionally, but also hard skills that I just had to practice and keep going and keep learning and keep pushing. There were days I didn't want to get out of bed because it was so overwhelming to go to work, and I guess in being there, I definitely decided I didn't want to be a nurse anymore. I left that aside. It wasn't me. And I knew I wanted to do business. So I started studying business administration through NSCC, which is our local college here. And I still am taking one course at a time just because I'm working and studying and I have Scarlett. It was another new discovery for me because I didn't know that I needed to think about the environment and the people and the time travel to work and what the workspace would look like, what those daily tasks are, the core company values are something that all of a sudden now are very important to me, which I never ever would have thought of before looking for an office job. So anyways, at that point, I decided to leave the company. It was a little bit scary for me, and it was kind of a big decision because I didn't know what was next. I didn't look for a job before leaving. I felt like I needed to leave and almost reset and then start looking for the next thing so that I wasn't feeling overwhelmed and tense while I was looking for the next job. I really wanted to have kind of a not a clean slate, but just be emotionally ready to look for that right job fit for me. After leaving that job, I went to a workshop, and it was with Futurpreneur, which is an organization here that helps young entrepreneurs. A lady named Mary Copps was the facilitator, and she owns the company called The Phone Lady, where she talks about communication and how to speak on the phone for all kinds of different things, whether it's looking for work or sales, customer service, anything really that you can do over the phone. I admired her as soon as she started talking. I was like, wow, this is a powerful woman. She's been through a lot. She knows how to, present herself and but also connect with you and almost in an emotional way. Like she knows. It's almost like she looks at you like she understands you before she really does know you. And I really admired that in her presenting style and the way that she brought us through the workshop. Anyway, I left kind of feeling just really good at the end of the workshop. I had met her, I introduced myself, gave her my business card, she gave me hers. A few weeks went by and she reached out to me by email asking me to translate some of her content. If it was something I'd be interested in doing, I said yes, and I translated it and then presented it. That was the first time I ever presented anything. It was the first time I was over the web teaching people about something that wasn't even my thing. And in my opinion, I did a terrible job. I was speaking faster than I could think. So it was just, and it was in French, so it was my second language, and I'm just like throwing words. That's what it felt like. I was just throwing words at the audience. So at the end of it, everyone came off, and she was still on the phone, and I put my face in my hands, and I was just so embarrassed that I had done such a terrible job. And she reassured me it was fine and whatever. But from there, we started a partnership, and I'm still working with her, and that's why I'm here. That's why you see phones behind me. And for her, I have taken over what we call the phone skills for the job search and on the job. So the premise is how to use the phone, proper phone etiquette, how to demonstrate phone soft skills, communication, organizational, those kinds of things, how you can do that over the phone. And but in this process, personally, it's been such a struggle, honestly, to go from working for a company where, corporate, there's rules, there's guidelines, there's a set amount of hours, and I know what I'm doing. Someone's teaching me constantly how to do something if I don't know how to do it. And now all of a sudden, I started writing for her blog. I've never really written before. I can write, but it's not something I've really put time into. So all of a sudden I'm writing for an audience that's already there, and I'm learning as I'm going, and I'm working at home and at the office and in a coffee shop. I'm sitting at home and Scarlett's there trying to talk to me, and I'm trying to work and explain to her what I'm doing. And within the job skills workshop, we also do it in person. So we'll go through, in Nova Scotia, there is an organization called Nova Scotia Works, and I feel this is the best way to kind of describe what we do with them, because through Nova Scotia Works, they have programs that are meant to help people in employment skills, which is a broad spectrum: resume building, interview skills, all kinds of things. But I feel that's kind of, those are almost where we're going. That's like the group where we're with. So there'll be a group of people, and we do a 3-hour workshop with them about the phone skills, and I talk about the interview, and a piece that I added in the beginning was on what I call body language versus mind, and just kind of the concept of we know what it feels like to be nervous or confident. What does it look like when we're feeling those things? And then can we use that awareness of what we look like when we're nervous or when we're confident, and actually purposely make our bodies do confident things when we're feeling nervous, which helps the way we're feeling to feel more confident rather than nervous. I'm in the space now where, even though I feel like there's constantly challenges in learning and growing in my career, but I'm this workshop that I do, and the communication and working with people who are looking for work and work that they want to be happy in. I just feel like I'm in a space that lines up so well with what I feel passionate about right now, and I was just I don't know, blessed to get in this situation where I was able to find something that I'm working with someone that I admire, and she's such a good role model for me, but also that I believe in the work that I'm doing, and the work that I'm doing falls into this creativity, artistic personality that I have. So that's where I'm at right now. As a young mom, being taken seriously is something that I faced a little bit, but I think that when I found out I was pregnant, I it was almost like I automatically already knew that was coming. So my first thought when I was looking at the test and it had 2 lines on it was, okay, what am I going to do? And it was like automatic planning mode. So when I'm in a situation where I want to be taken seriously, my first thing to say isn't that I have a child, because then I have almost some proving to do. I've accepted that, and I know that that's just, I guess, the way that a lot of people see a young woman who has a child, that we're going to struggle to be successful, or we're going to be slower getting into work, or maybe we won't be able to at all. And that was actually very well showcased at my graduation ceremony, because it was a small graduating class and everyone had their picture and what school they're going to and what career they're going into and what they've already accomplished. And mine was a picture and a blank screen. And it was because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had a little girl, so my mind 7 days after giving birth was not, what school am I going to and what my career is going to look like. As a young mom, I don't think I've really struggled that much because of that awareness. I ignore it. I remember walking around in the store with her father. We're not together anymore, but back when we were grocery shopping, and he was like, everyone's staring at us because we have a little baby and we're 18, 19 years old. And I said, I didn't notice. I don't see anybody looking at me, because all I'm looking at is my daughter and where I'm going. I need groceries right now. So I think that's kind of how I've overcome that. I've faced more challenges as just a woman without a kid at work, and it's something that I've experienced and didn't even realize I was experiencing, honestly. In one of my jobs, some of the things that were said to me, which I won't say because they're not appropriate, but that's how inappropriate some of the things were, bad language, or even just the way, something is structured and what is implied in it. And it's so hard to say something about something that's just being implied, because what are you really calling out other than that hidden message, right? But there was one time I was in a meeting with a big corporate company, and it was my first huge meeting with people from this company. I was really excited and, doing my best to just be not squishy feely woman, just serious, I'm at a meeting kind of vibe. And the man that I was speaking to was asking me about my name, Miriam. Oh, where is it from? And I was telling him, it's from the Bible, it's Hebrew, I came from a religious family. And my boss was standing behind me, and he was like, yeah, like Virgin Mary in the Bible. And it was so subtle, and like he thought it was funny, and it's really not that big of a deal, but it was the hidden message about what he was saying. So in that moment, I heard it and ignored it. I didn't say anything. I just kept walking. And then later I pulled him aside and I was like, look, I get it. You think it's funny, but I don't appreciate it, and I don't want you to ever do that to me again. And he laughed, and I said, no, I'm serious. And that was it. And that was how it went. And that's how I try to deal with those situations. Just, I try not to react right away to most things, because usually my first reaction is not the greatest. But in terms of what my experiences have been as a young woman and a young woman in the business world, that's what it's looked like so far.
Challenging.
Someone once told me or made a comment about if if we take responsibility for what's being said to us and how we're being treated, there's a lot of power in that. And I kind of thought that was really interesting. I mean, there's one side of it where there's only so much control you have over the way someone is treating you and how they're speaking to you. But, in that story where I didn't react at first and I did come back later to say something to him, at least I tried to say something. If he's going to come back and make another inappropriate comment, that's on him. But if I didn't say anything, this would be a completely different story. So I think there definitely is power in being able to stand up for ourselves. But that being said, with communication and soft skills being one thing that I really feel passionate about, we often talk about taking responsibility for the way that people talk to you, or for in communication, making sure that you're speaking in a way that they're really hearing you. I think the power of being able to take responsibility and being able to stand up for yourself, or taking responsibility in a way that you're communicating to the other person so they understand you. I think the first step is acknowledging that you need to do that. there's been a lot of situations where I know something, I have it in the back of my mind, but I haven't fully been like, okay, I need to take responsibility. This is my doing. This is me that needs to at least try to take control and own that power in communicating, because it's something that over time I've realized I'm passionate about communication and the way we speak to each other. It's not something I just knew. But the first thing for me was overcoming a fear. I think self-awareness is a huge piece about communication, and being able to own the power of the way that we speak to others, because when you're aware of what you want, then you know what you need to do. And if you can overcome the fear, which you need to do once to be able to do it again, it makes it easier to act on what you want and what you need to do in order to get those wants. But when I'm speaking to others about how they can own that, I think there's almost a blend of the things that we can do in order to empower someone else, whether it's another woman or a group of young people who are about to go into work and the challenges they're going to face. I think there's a couple different parts we can use, or I use personal examples, because I do feel that stories are a good way to connect with somebody, and through those stories, being able to touch on things that speak to them directly, which involves a certain amount of knowledge, which, you know, whether it's research or through a conversation, but whomever I'm speaking to, the more I know about them, the better I can empathize and understand, and thus better communicate with them. So, you know, if I was trying to empower someone, I likely would have some ideas of who they are, and through my storytelling and tying in something I know about them, I think that's the best way that we can empower somebody else to communicate and take responsibility for the way that they're interacting with others. But one of the things that I definitely struggle with is that, you know, not worrying about other people, but also this constant, am I good enough, or am I too young? Do I need to get more experience before I do this? And people tell me, no, it's fine, do it now. And somewhere inside I know, like, you can do this now, but I am always fighting it, always fighting it. And I see my daughter fighting it. She's 5 years old, and she's, even to this day, will tell me, you know, she'll start something and she'll say, oh, I'm terrible at this, and she stomps away very dramatically and cries in her room and doesn't want to do it again. And it's hard for me to find the right words to talk to her so that she's hearing me, and so that she can overcome that feeling. And honestly, I don't know how yet. I'm still trying to figure it out. That constant encouragement, and trying to figure out what she needs in order to be encouraged. I read a book, this was a few months back now, and it was called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, meant for relationships, married couples, but I ended up with the book because one of my close friends, I was telling her about, you know, communication, and one project that I'm working on right now is a training platform that I'm calling Getting to We, and it's targeted at employees and younger employees, and how managers, leaders and their young employees, and how they can better communicate with each other. So understanding the background on both sides, the different in generations, and so on. And so she gave me this book, and in the book, he tells a story about a child, as an example, how when the child is learning how to walk, for example, they take their first few steps, and then they fall down, and most parents are like, yay, you took your first few steps, this is so exciting, and they get them back up, and they hold their hands, and they, you know, dangle a toy in front of the kid, trying to get them to do it again. And then when the kid gets older, and they're, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, and you want them to clean their room, they go in and they clean a corner in the bedroom, and then they ask you to come look at it. And the parents, often their reaction is, oh, that's great, but you missed the whole room. I asked you to clean your whole room and make your bed and pick up the toys and put the things away, not just put the toys away. I need the whole room clean. There's people coming over. And there's just this really big difference in the reaction and the encouragement that's taken place in those two different age groups. Because, I mean, if you're a parent watching this, you understand that those different stages include different excitements, and it gets tiring over time, because there's so many things that you're constantly trying to do with them. Um, I actually did a short presentation on this in one of my classes that I posted on YouTube, the 5 love languages, because the concept is being able to understand what your loved one or your child or whomever that person is, what their primary love language is. And I think you can use this in more than just love, compassion, or if you're looking at work, what's the best way to appreciate your employee? Or if you're looking at a child, what's the best way to encourage your child? And so I tried it. I did my own little experience with Scarlet. Um, experiment, I said experience. I was in the kitchen and she was in her room and I was like, I want you to clean your room. And so she did. And I came back and it was the exact situation. She had cleaned a little portion of her bedroom and not all of it. And I so badly wanted to kind of let out the first name, middle name, and ask her to do all of it. But I stopped myself, and it was a very literal halt. Okay, pull back, rephrase, get different emotions out for this. And I was like, oh, Scarlett, you did such an awesome job. Look at how clean this corner is. I like how you did this and where this part is. I think you could take the time to do the rest of your room and you'll do a really good job. And you could probably do it even faster because you're already starting it. And she was like, yeah, okay. And she cleaned her room and it looked awesome. And it was so much fun. And so, I don't know, it was just an exciting experiment to do with her, because for me, it was like, wow, how easy it was for me to just pull back and say it differently. My facial expression, my tone of voice, my body language, the words, everything was different in that question, and switching her to do the rest of her room, and her response just told me everything about what it meant. And I thought it was funny reading that book because it was about a married couple, and I'm not married, but it was so interesting for me, and I've used it, and I still talk about it now, obviously. I
I
didn't
love that.
realize that I was already doing it before I read that book and started kind of my research and my journey in the communication thing. But back when I was at my first office job, one of the things that I would do to help me in my relationships with my coworkers was I went home and I made a list in my notebook of everyone's name, and beside their name, things that they liked to talk about. And then that way, when I went into work, I wasn't wasting time talking about my personal life, which I'm not a fan of doing at work. I wasn't talking to them about something they didn't care about, but I was automatically jumping in on something. Or if I saw, an article on the news or on my social media or whatever, I knew automatically what to pick out that I could talk to my coworkers about that would make them feel like, at least I'm interested in what it is they want to talk about. But also with my boss at the time, because I was bringing forward like new marketing ideas and things that we could kind of test out and why I thought they would work. It was kind of a funny process of me doing that, because I would walk in his office and knock on the door, and then I would go in with my idea. And it started out with me going in and pitching what the idea was, and just very uh, very brief and didn't include a lot of details, and I would get shut down very quickly, or he would say that's a great idea and I wouldn't hear anything of it again. So in that process of bringing forward these ideas, I realized that when I went to my boss, I needed to bring what the idea is, why I came up with it, how we're doing it right now, and what the current outcome is, and why my new idea, what it would look like, and what the better outcome was going to be, and kind of break down everything before I went to him, because all he did was ask me the questions anyway, so I needed to know. Um, and there was another coworker who was in charge of one department, but I had an idea for his department, so I pitched it to the owner of the company, and he was like, "That's great," and I didn't hear anything more of it. So I decided to go to my coworker who actually worked in that department, because I was close to it, but not. It wasn't really my responsibility to have and execute the idea. So I realized that knowing the way that people, just knowing more about their personalities, what they like to talk about, what they feel passionate about, what matters to them, makes it easier to speak to them. So I had a meeting with the guy in the department where we both had our notebooks, and I brought up the problem that I saw and asked him questions that led him to come to the conclusion, which was my idea. And then he went and pitched the idea to the owner, and that way, even though it was my idea, I knew it had to be implemented, but I was able to find a way to have it implement And inside, I know what I did, and I'm proud of the way that I was able to help the company come to that conclusion, but I didn't get anything for it. And I was kind of in the background helping them go through it. And that was, I don't know, I just thought that's an interesting story, because it's kind of like, you know, it's at work. I knew the outcome would be good. No one was listening to me, probably for a number of reasons, but I was able to help everyone come to the, you know, the execution plan to make it happen anyway. Yesterday,
It's
I've
interesting.
realized that there's a certain power in communicating, but also there's this challenge that happens in overcoming the fear of communicating, but how humbling it is to be able to truly speak your mind, because it's difficult and because it's hard. And even though, you know, the fear of what that person's going to respond with and what the outcome is going to be, being able to avoid the constant wondering of, should I have done that? What if I did that? It's incredible. It's empowering to be able to overcome that.